In a world constantly in motion, where skies tell stories untold. One channel has the eyes to see beyond the visible. Welcome to Werx. Join us as we track and analyze the movements that shape our reality. From geopolitical shifts to the silent ops that never make the news. Dive deep into this unique perspective where we decode the signals above and reveal the stories they hide. Be part of a community that values truth and transparency, where every flight tells a story. Subscribe and join the mission. Stay aware, stay prepared, and stay vigilant with Werx.
All right. Hey, welcome, folks. It's going to be your Sitrep Garbage Monkey here as we get into 0 hour. Today is going to be probably a very pivotal point in our nation's history. And I have a feeling that this has the ability to go hot very quickly. And so you need to be very vigilant. As I always say, stay frosty. You definitely need to make sure your powder's dry. And it's where this goes from here. I think we all kind of have that gut feeling that things are not going to be what I would say smooth sailing from here on out. This is probably the point where we start to pivot as a nation. And so let's get into the deets, because we're going to talk about, we've got troop deployments, which are unprecedented, and it's not, it's National Guard, and it's all over all these different states. We'll talk about those in detail. We're going to talk about the jobs number and the economy, because we're going to talk about some bad news. The jobs report that just came out is beyond dismal, and it's an indicator of what we are about to probably experience here in our country, because it is not good news on any level. But typically when a jobs report comes out like that, just before the election, it has a very big impact on the election. So we'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about what's going on in the Middle East, because that stuff is far from over. In fact, I think that is probably going to be our next go point in terms of regional war. I don't see it getting super hot unless we go against somebody like Iran, because then Russia will actually come in to help them out. So let's do this. Let's jump on over here to Skyglass. As always, you can see the yellow circles on here. Those are intel, reconnaissance, and surveillance aircraft. But as we start to look at, you can see this mess of weather that's coming through, sitting around 233 aircraft up over the United States. If I give you just a bottoms up number over Europe, and let me back that up a little bit, and the number's around 124, which is still pretty active given the time of day. All right. So let's get back over to CONUS. Let's kind of peel this banana back a little bit and see what it is we actually have up. Now, you talk about H-60 Blackhawks. Most of this is in the Panhandle. That's going to be training related. It's the stuff up here in the Northeast you keep an eye on. And then we go down. You got the, let me see, H-47 Chinooks. 6 of those up, but I only see 1 in the Panhandle. Don't worry too much about that one. But then as you get up here in the Northeast, you can see a little more active. The rest of those are going to be over in Europe. Now, let's talk air refuelers. And we have 28 KC-135s currently up. We throw in on top of that the 767-200, and it gives us a number of 38. That's a little higher than usual, where you're typically around 25 is our baseline. Okay, now the next piece we'll look at, just we're going to pop the C-130s just for a hot minute. I want to see if there's anything that indicates that, moving maybe some guard or some troops around. You can see very active up here in the Pennsylvania side of the house. So we'll continue to watch that as we get into the news cycle. So let's do this. Let's jump over to our watch list, and you're going to see it's a little active. We are still light in terms of what we would normally see. I think it's a little lighter than usual. You can see the border protection balloons. You can see the high altitude flyers. You can see some intel flights off the left coast down towards Baja. All right. And then let's see, Florida is just slam packed. There's a lot of stuff happening over Florida. A lot of air refuelers. Maybe because they got a hurricane coming in. D328, it's going to be your Spec Ops boys. All right, headed down. I think it's probably going to Guantanamo Bay. And then a little E3 Sentry, some E6 TACAMOs. Those are Notams and Navy asset. And the other is AWACS, right? So it's Air Force. You get over to Europe and you can see you got a little Jake 17 up. You've got some Brio right there, intelligence gathering. That's the Ruskies out here. Back over here to Europe and you could see a little E3 Sentry intel balloon. And then one of those down there over France, that southern point of France is that is going to be weather mod. And then that over the water north of Libya, that's going to be a drone, low altitude drone. All right. Now let's talk intelligence. And this is where it gets a little spooky because I'm not seeing hardly anything over the last 3 days over the United States. Very unusual. Yeah, a little flight there down to, it looks to be Pennsylvania from Buffalo. And then over to Europe. Again, very light on the intelligence side. It is spookily quiet when it comes to that. So, all right. Now, let's talk. Of course, you got some low altitude stuff over Romania. We continue to see that. And then, obviously, the cover up over Israel. Now, you look at the R-135s, and this is where it is really, really light. Now, notice it's just, it kind of flies at that northern border. It gets out over Detroit, etc., right, over the state of Michigan, southern Michigan. And then a little bit of activity. That's probably Jake 17 up there over Europe. All right, let's talk Spec Ops. Pay attention to these guys. This is where if there's something getting ready to go down, you probably see these start to get deployed. I see some broken traces, a little concerning, as always. And then we see them in and out of kind of the D.C. area, North Carolina. That looks like Southern Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky. And then you can see a broken trace as it heads across the drink. And then up into what looks to be Sweden, north of Denmark. Right, out of Europe. Okay. Now, that is an interesting one for you because, as I said, we watched them very closely. Same thing with the Grays, right? These guys are the ones that are doing all the movement for the agency guys. Big takeaway here. Notice that one. Don't pay too much attention to the one off the left coast because they do transportation for engineers out to one of the islands there. Now, you see this around the horn? That tells you got agency guys going into Guantanamo Bay. They operate right here. This is Cartersville. That's their home base operations. In and out of Jacksonville, in and out of D.C. Exactly what you would expect. All right. All right, let's get back over here to the mini. Let's get into the news cycle. And this is where we've got a lot of stuff happening, and you don't want to lose sight of this, especially on Election Day, because if the wrong one gets in, we're going to have major problems. They will just open this border up. All this you see right here with the razor wire, and it'll be gone. They'll just knock that fence down, and you'll just be, come on in. All right, now look at this. Biden-Harris administration spent $80 million to help immigrants bypass the southern border. I've been showing you that. That's because they're using that money to fly them. I imagine that money is a lot higher. This is Global X. As you can see, southern border all the way from Texas, Arizona into the left side over there in California. And then down into Central America. Now notice that one comes out of Alexandria. Well, I'll tell you why that happens. They're getting sent down to Guatemala. All right, but that's just Global X. Now you take a look at Omni the last 3 days, and these gents have been very busy. This right here, to me, straight up treason. The CEO of this company has put money over our country. And like I said, it's treason. If you work for this airline, I don't know how you sleep at night, because this right here, you're bringing illegals into our country in droves. You can see it in and out near Caracas, down into Colombia, into the Caribbean, and then, of course, across the drink. Now, I know you move troops too, and that's just part of all of this, but I will tell you, I'm venture to guess, given the fact that we saw the numbers that have been coming into the United States, $43,000 a month or $45,000 a month. That was only three countries. That was like Haiti in Central America and one other. That doesn't count the Middle Easterners that are coming over, and we know that number is high. All right. So this is how. That's at $80 million being spent. All right, look at this. Migrant arrest at the border. And this is both borders, by the way, Canada and the southern border. Jumped to 58,000 the last month before the election. Now, the interesting piece to this is you look at this and you tell me how you identify who's Middle Eastern, who's South American, who's Central American, who's Mexican. Good luck trying to sort that one out, all right? And this is not just one single month. You can go back since August. You got when you had 60,000, you got 58,000 this month. That number just continues, all right? You know what you don't see in here? I see one woman. Doesn't mean she's not one of them, okay? But yeah, I don't see any kids. Heck, that may not even be a woman. You can't tell these days. That could just be somebody with long hair like this dude right here. Right. Okay, now let me bounce over here to the headline piece, and I want to show you something as we get into the deets. This right here is historical because I went back and looked into our history. We typically don't put National Guard out for an election. So the fact that we are doing that in all of these 20 different states have put their National Guard on standby. 20 states. The interesting thing is Texas is not one of those. But you can see right here next to me, I've got Nevada. Basically, the governor's already activated his National Guard. Illinois has done so. But then you got Alabama, Arizona, Delaware, Iowa, Illinois, North Carolina, New Mexico, Wisconsin, and D.C. And they're saying this is because they're expecting unrest in those areas. So that right there is just something you want to just keep. It's a data point for you, but if you live in those areas, just note, your National Guard's been activated. All right. Not good. Okay. Let's go back over here for a second. Actually, you know what? Let me do this while I am on this. We'll go with this piece right here because this is very interesting. The U.S. added 12,000 jobs in October. Now, the normal number for a month, typically in a good, thriving economy, has been around 200,000 a month. So when you got 12,000 jobs that pop up in October, given the fact that this administration has been changing and revising the numbers end over end for the last, since they've been in office, they put out a number, then they come back and revise it quietly and don't tell anybody. The number is always down. It's never up. And so this is a very big indicator that our economy is on a near free fall. Okay. So pay attention to that because that is not good news. Okay. And that typically is very bad for the incumbent if that is a number for them. All right. Now here's the other piece too. You need to pay attention to. It says the private sector shrank by 28,000, the worst since 2020, while the government jobs rose by 40,000. Any guesses what those government jobs were? Yeah, probably IRS, people that are basically coming out and enforcing things, right? So, okay, so we'll take that away. We take the jobs piece away here, and I'm just going to put that out there. If you haven't lost sight of it, it's an important data point for you. Okay, all right, let's jump on over here. Let's get into this piece. All right. They are putting up security fencing all around the White House and the U.S. Capitol and the VP residence over Election Day. You can see it. Let me drop down a little further. You can see this is the stuff you supposedly can't get your fingers in. You can't climb it. It's got the big base on it, so it's very hard to flip over. Can it be done? Oh, yeah, absolutely. But they're all interconnected. But, you have a big enough crowd, and this stuff doesn't matter. It'll eventually come over. So pay attention to that because I don't see this going away anytime soon, all right? Especially when you see the Guard being deployed, et cetera, all right? All right, and as we just talked about, the state puts National Guard on standby in case of election violence. Pretty confident it's going that way. Okay, let's look at the cyber attack map from Bitdefender over here today. And I would imagine today's going to get peppered a lot heavier than it probably has ever been, just because it is an election day. So pay close attention to that. I'm always interested in the spikes that come out of Germany and into the United States on election day. You got to read between the lines on some of this stuff, folks. Okay, now look at this. This is going to be, we got a missile box out here. This one is the one that catches my attention as we look at the Notams, because the name of this, I find it very interesting. It's a rocket launch, but look at the name on this, right? Roscosmos. That's Russian. So are the Ruskies out here popping off some shots? You remember, we just showed you that they were out in the Caribbean. We've been seeing their aircraft out here. So maybe. All right. And then just looking over the United States, I don't see anything that catches my eye other than this big one right here over DC. Danger boxes off east and left coast. Big slop of weather coming through the middle. Again, this will impact especially these states that typically have a lot of big blue voter turnout. Detroit, Chicago, right in the meat of the swing state. Okay, let's just talk base movement for just a minute. I want to show you the Omni flights in and out of Baltimore, Atlas Air, Baltimore. So we got flights coming in from those locations. This is Biggs Army Airfield. Then you get over here, notice this Omni goes to Fayetteville, North Carolina, 777. Notice this one's headed back to Barksdale Air Force Base. This is probably due to the B-52s that just went across the drink, all right? If you didn't catch that, let me just show you this real fast. This is the trace of them going into the Middle East. They went dark. They were dark all the way across. They went dark as soon as they got to about Malta. And then there's no telling where these aircraft went. I have an idea, but I'm not going to say that, okay? So when you see this stuff, this right here, these surges that are coming out of our big SAC bases, don't even call them SAC anymore, but the strategic command side, they've been doing it a lot lately. They're doing it out of Minot. They're doing it out of Barksdale. Minot are the ones that got deployed over to the Middle East. But again, when you see the flights coming in from Barksdale Air Force Base and heading to Barksdale Air Force Base, that is probably just bringing in some folks to get them rotated because they will be definitely putting the flyaway kits and all the logistics stuff headed over. And then, of course, these are the two Atlases that came in, and you'll just notice that one's headed to Portsmouth. The other is actually headed to Portsmouth as well. Don't know what that is, if it's a fuel stop, if they're bringing troops up there or what, but it's a data point. And then we get over here to Dover, and you'll notice that you've got Coletta coming in from Chicago. And then, of course, that one leaves from there, 747 headed to Ramstein. And you also have another one coming in from Chicago, which is National Cargo down here on the bottom right here, 747. Okay. Now, this can be your cambers. Just notice that they're very active over here into this little spot right there. That's Djibouti, right? So that's interesting, all right? Bringing in some troops more than likely. And then you can see them over here into Europe. Now, look at the C-17 traffic. You'll notice a little bit of stuff going on down there in Australia. And then a little bit, not too much. It's kind of light, but there is an interesting one for you. You can see the thick traces into Ramstein, down into the Middle East. Right? Kind of around the horn. Hot and heavy into Saudi, into Bahrain, Kuwait, and the UAE and Qatar. See these broken traces that drop down into over the Gulf of Mexico? They come out of Beale Air Force Base, right? And they fly out and then they go dark. So I'm telling you, we're going to watch very closely the USVI because that is going to be their bug out location. If things go hot in DC, you're going to see them all go down there and sit on the beach while we fight it out up here. All right. So again, just pay attention to that one. It's a data point for you. But that's your C-17 traffic. Okay, moving on. We start talking about the Brits and their movement. And you'll notice coming out of Halifax, headed back to the UK. Got some stuff just getting airborne here. Don't know where it's headed, but a couple flights. Yeah, you can see something headed. It looks to be Sweden. Is that? Yeah, I think that's Sweden. Nope, Norway, Sweden. No, that's going to be Finland. All right, so southern Finland. Helsinki, I guess. All right. Notice the Germans are down here in Nairobi, out here on the left side of Africa, headed southbound. Like I said, keep your eye on the Germans because they are very active and they have a very big global presence. We've seen them all the way over into Asia. We've seen them over in the United States, Canada, Alaska. They're really getting kind of out there and about. All right. Now, this is going to be Ramstein. You got a camber, 2 camber flights coming in. One's from Ursulik and the other from Dover. So this is Turkey. Where do they go from here? This one coming back. Notice the Omni flight that's going to JFK. That's taking Middle Easterners straight into the United States. All right. They do it every single day. And then this one looks about a round trip into Ursulik. And then this destination unknown. All right. Okay, U.S. announces, here's your Bohica moment for today. U.S. announces $425 million in new Ukraine security aid. So it just keeps going. This is your money going across the drink to a country that most of us care zero about. We're only there because it's a deep state stronghold and has been since after World War II. Now, this right here is another $425 million of your hardworking money. Just wait, because if Trump actually gets in, you're going to see them punch out probably tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine before he takes office. Right? Okay. And then, of course, RZE Poland, very quiet over here other than our money. You kind of go back down the list here, and I don't see really anything other than maybe I saw some Brits on here earlier, but we got nothing. Very unusual, very quiet. All right. U.S. Air Force to send bomber task force to Europe. Well, guess what? This, you'll notice you got a B-2, you got a B-1, you've got the B-52. If I go back over here to my headline and I look at this one right here, this is a statement from the Pentagon. It was an immediate press release, but they're talking about basically moving a bunch of B-52s over to the Middle East, as well as other missile defense systems. So if you thought, oh, everything's behind us, it is far from it, folks. And I will tell you, when you start putting the B-52s into Europe, and actually any of the bombers into Europe and into the Middle East, you typically do that when you're ready to go to war. All right. Here we go. What we just talked about. B-52 bombers arrive in the Middle East, U.S. military coming out of Minot. That's the same one that had the monkey call sign that we caught going across. But this is just a big indicator that the things are far, far from being over when it comes to that. I like the F-35 escorts. That's pretty tight. Okay, so let's just talk about that. What is going on asset-wise inside the Middle East? Where do we have troops and bases? Now, I'm not going to give you the numbers because I know they're soft. I know these numbers have been going up exponentially in the last 60, 90 days. But you can see we've got missile defense radar up in Turkey. There's Incirlik. We talk about the fact that they have been, you see them in and out of Ramstein all the time on the rotation. But just look, it gives you what kind of aircraft are in there. So you've got A-10s, F-15s, a lot of different types of F-15s. Air refuelers. You've got EA-6s, F-16s. You got a lot of drones. It's just a lot in and out of Turkey. Then you get down here, you got the Royal Air Force is kind of, that's their main place there in Cyprus. But look, I mean, you've got us here in Jordan. We have aircraft carriers here. We're in Kuwait. We're in northern Iraq. This right here, the presence right here tells me that Iran is probably going to be the one that they're trying to deter the threat from. But at the end of the day, I just don't see us going, to blows with Iran because we've given them so much money. We've enabled them for everything they need to do their nuclear program, all right here. That's exactly what this is all about. Same thing with ISIS or ISIL, as they call them. And if we go to blows with Iran, more than likely we will end up going to blows with Russia because Russia will come to Iran's aid. So will China. All right. So that's just a data point. Like I said, this is areas where we have all of our military. And you can see we are covered up when it comes to the Middle East. All right. Now, notice there are a couple areas they don't really talk about or show, and that's Israel. You notice how that was conveniently left off the map. I know we have assets there. Not talking about it, right? Now, if you look at the base numbers, this is not accurate on any level. This number, I think in total 53,000, and no, I'm willing to bet it's probably triple that number over here right now. All right. So, okay. Last little one. This is a data point because you got to pay attention. This is why I say this is far from being over. But Iran vows a measured and calculated response to the Israeli attack. Remember, they were the ones that threw the first stone, and now they just keep coming back every time Israel goes after them. So just pay attention to it. When it comes to the Bible, Ezekiel 38 is really the only place that these guys are mentioned. So I don't feel like this is going to continue to escalate. I think at some point it's going to stand down. Maybe they bring us to the table for some peace in the Middle East. I say they, but it'd be the Saudis that will eventually do it. But, this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, if the current regime stays into play and, we will probably see our backs turned on Israel more so than we've ever seen in our history since they formed as a nation. So, all right, folks, look, that's going to do it for our Sitrep today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Please get out there and vote. This is the most important thing we could possibly do in our nation's history today. All right. Let's see what happens tomorrow. But today, you got to get out and vote. And if you can't get there, find a way. You got to just make it happen. All right. All right. That's it. You guys stay frosty. Keep that powder dry. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out. Artisan handcrafted soaps. Get yours in the Monkey Werx shop today.